New York Times, 5th of March 2024, a little paradise is the Maldives. Why are India and China at war over it? China is enslaving smaller countries to build staging facilities and bases for the Chinese military as it bolsters its military to dominate the Indian Ocean. A mile-long stretch of highway rises out of the Indian Ocean between a few scattered pieces of coral. The highly crowded capital of this archipelago, Malé, and the international airport, which Chinese businesses have enlarged, are now joined by the China-Maldives Friendship Bridge, which opened in 2018. However, China is not the only country seeking amity with the Maldives. Beyond Indira Gandhi Memorial Hospital, a 20-minute stroll across the capital, a longer sea bridge will connect Malé to the Western Islands. Indian laborers are building this one, and India funds it. The world's two most populated countries, China and India, hardly make an impression next to the 500,000-person, small, tourism-dependent Maldives. However, every bump matters in the two behemoths' struggle for sway over South Asia, and as a result, the Maldives are now positioned halfway between them. India has historically been the most potent economic and military force in the large region. Nevertheless, China has signed infrastructure agreements and gained access to ports in nations around India, making considerable progress with its far greater financial resources. Due to its strategic location, both of Asia's superpowers prioritize the Maldives. China must maintain a military presence in the Arabian Sea to protect its access to oil from the Persian Gulf. Furthermore, India wants to ensure that its island neighbor, the Maldives, doesn't get too close to Beijing, given the conflicts it has been having with Beijing along the Himalayan border. India and the Maldives had an unexpected spat in January over what was considered a threat to the vital tourism industry on the islands. But beyond the sky-blue lagoons of the Maldives, the great power rivalry has not yet reached a boiling point. Gains and losses are primarily determined by the Maldives' political leanings, which fluctuate between being more pro-China and pro-India. Most important, though, is the amount of money spent by both parties trying to win over the hearts and minds of Maldivians. The Maldives Trade and Economic Development Minister, Mohammed Saeed, bluntly explains his country's requirements from his high-rise office overlooking Mal's marina. The region's economy generates approximately $6.5 billion annually, with $6 billion coming from tourism and most from tuna fishing. The target economic size is $12 billion in the following 5 years. The Maldives first saw tourists in 1972, and today, its upscale resorts, distinguished by the water villas that sprout from wooden boardwalks, welcome over 1 million tourists annually. Only in 2008, after the election of a young, charismatic leader named Mohammed Nasheed, did the nation become a democracy. In the most recent swing of the balance between India and China, Mohammed Mutsu, the current president, was elected 5 months ago. During his campaign, he ran on an India Out platform, advocating for the removal of roughly 80 Indian military personnel stationed throughout the Maldives to give support. A Mutsu appointee, Mr. Saeed, served as a cabinet minister when the China-Maldives Friendship Bridge was inaugurated during the previous pro-China administration. He was in charge of a free trade deal with China. However, he maintains that Mr. Mutsu's administration only adopts a pro-Maldives stance. He states there is no preference for China and that we would like to get the best value for our tuna, thus, we extend our invitation of free trade to all countries. It may seem best to pursue friendly relations with China and India simultaneously. However, Indira Gandhi, a writer and former career diplomat, noted that this became increasingly challenging when both nations intensified their influence campaigns during the Maldives' democratic transition. China has development banks surpassing India's, with larger coffers than India. However, Mr. Gandhi pointed out that China has mostly carrots and India has both the stick and the carrots. This is because the Maldives leans on its close neighbor in times of great need. Mr. Gandhi enumerated several crises in which Indian assistance proved invaluable, ranging from countering an attempted coup in Sri Lanka in 1988 to providing relief following the 2004 tsunami to airlifting 1,200 tons of freshwater during a shortage in 2014, a period during which a president with ties to China headed the Maldives. Beyond economics and location, India and China differ significantly from one another as competitors. This was demonstrated during the recent escalation between the two countries in the Maldives. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India came under fire on social media from 3 junior ministers for endorsing the nation's paradisal atoll, the much smaller and less developed archipelago known as Lakshadweep. These India-out Maldivians implied their economy was in danger. In the considerably stronger outcry, nationalistic Indians advocated a boycott of the islands. The strained relations contrasted with China, which has absolute control over messaging. Thanks to this, it may now effectively negotiate behind closed doors with smaller nations. Though Beijing has handled relations as skillfully as New Delhi, it may feel less at ease with the Maldives' recent democratic transition. Eva Abdullah, a prominent member of parliament and ardent supporter of democracy, is adamantly pro-Indian. She opposes oscillation primarily. "It is not beneficial for us to change course on foreign policy," she stated. "It doesn't allow for any kind of stability in development projects, not in terms of security." The former president's cousin, Ms. Abdullah, makes the case that there are other reasons to support India as a partner. She points out that South Asian republics have similar cultures. India provides funding for institutions such as a cultural center in Malé that promotes yoga and Indian dance, in addition to hospitals and schools on the remote islands. In the Maldives, which is purportedly a 100% Muslim nation, Mr. Modi's pro-Hindu policies at home have offended many people. Nevertheless, Ms. Abdullah declared, "We can't afford a fistfight with India." She and Mr. Mutsu, the president, who leads opposing parties in the April legislative elections, concur on this. Mr. Mutsu has escalated his calls for a generalized Maldivian nationalism, eschewing an overtly anti-Indian tone favoring the island's native tongue and Islamic principles. Reluctantly, he has fulfilled his vow to remove the Indian military personnel, but India has not stopped working on its development initiatives. One of the most noticeable is a massive airport development on the island of Hanamadu, located around 1 hour's flight north of Malé. One of the aircraft used by the Indian airmen resides there. Furthermore, because of this endeavor, some Maldivians worry that their sovereign country is being set up as a possible front in another person's war. With 2,664 residents, Hanamadu barely seems to require the additional runways that an Indian company is building. Nor do the neighboring, less visited islands. However, day and night, excavators are working to virtually re-engineer the vulnerable islands so that massive airplanes can land there. Hanamadu appears to be a pattern component reminiscent of an airport constructed by Indians at the other end of the nation. It's not just Maldivians that believe that. Ranjit, an Indian laborer working at the site, stated that he thought the reason India needed to construct a military-ready facility here was apparent. "China is on its way," he declared. "Aren't you observing the Chinese ships preparing?" The Xiaoyang Hong 03, a research vessel officially registered in China, arrived in Malé on February 22. According to the Maldivian authorities, it was merely a port call. However, similar to the airport developments in India, the ship left a trail of uncertainty over its military use.